Hey there. I was recently called a Christian basher in response to one of my videos in support of gay rights. Now, I'm actually a Christian, and I don't think Christianity and support of gay rights is mutually exclusive. I mean, most Christians who are really against homosexuality will point you to two passages in Leviticus which say that, homosexual acts between two men is an abomination. And yes, that's certainly in Leviticus. However, there's a lot of other stuff in Leviticus. There's stuff saying that you can't plant, two types of seed in the same field. There's stuff saying you can't eat pork. There's stuff saying the proper way you can cut your beard and the way the corners have to be on your beard. And there's stuff that says you're not allowed to wear clothes that have two threads of different types, two different types of threads in it. Now, look, I'm clean shaven, I'm Christian, I can shave my beard wherever I want, I can eat pork, and certainly I've never seen a Christian protester hold up a sign saying, God hates cotton polyester blends. So clearly, a lot of Christians are looking very closely and paying attention to some parts of Leviticus and completely ignoring other parts. That actually is not a bad thing. As a thinking Christian, as a Christian that uses the brain that God gives to you, you almost have to look at some parts of Leviticus and not others. And this goes for the Bible as a whole, because if you look at the Bible, if you look at every single line, it is full of lines that contradict other lines. It's all over the place. I'll provide a link that shows a lot of that, but it's all over the place in the Bible. And if you're a thinking person using the brain that God gave you, you have only two choices. One, you can completely reject the Bible, completely reject Christianity, say it's all a bunch of bullcrap. Or two, you can say, maybe every single line in the Bible isn't meant to be taken 100% literally. Maybe every single line isn't 100% true. The Bible, yes, it's supposed to be the Word of God, but somebody wrote it down on paper. People did. And people are not perfect. They can make mistakes. There could be flawed prophets. There can be false prophets, people who said they were prophets and really weren't. And, more importantly, a lot of the things that Christ said override stuff that's in the Old Testament. This is not to say that we as Christians can cherry pick the Bible. I'm not suggesting, finding whatever stuff you don't like in the Bible and saying, oh, that guy was a false prophet. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as a Christian, we should look to Christ first. We should look at what Christ says first and look at the rest of the Bible relative to what Christ said. We should start with Christ. That should be our base. And I'd like to start by talking about one of probably the most important passages to me in the Bible, which starts, in Matthew 22:36. It starts there where Christ is asked, what's the most important commandment? And he says, the two most important commandments are you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. And more importantly, he says that all the other commandments follow from those two. So when I look at the Bible, I'm asking myself, if someone else other than Christ is saying something, or what they're saying, does it really meet that criteria that Christ is talking about? Does it? Well, thou shalt not kill. Yeah, that fits. Thou shalt not steal. Makes sense. Thou shalt not bear false witness. You shouldn't do that. It hurts other people. Thou shalt not commit adultery. That makes sense to me. You're hurting the person you're with, the person you're betraying. That's not a good neighborly thing to do. So yes, most of the stuff in the Old Testament does follow what Christ said. But I don't see how two committed people loving each other is something that, if that's being a bad neighbor to someone, or that's not loving God, or not showing love. I don't think Christ would be against that, whether it's with two people of opposite sex or the same sex. I don't see what the difference is. Christ spoke about a lot of things, but he didn't speak about homosexuality at all. If it was that important, he would have spoken about it. For example, he spoke not a lot about, but he certainly mentioned adultery. And yes, I'm very much against adultery. And by adultery, I just don't mean sex outside of one's marriage. I mean even unmarried people being promiscuous before marriage. I think that's all wrong. As a Christian, I feel it's sinful. I do. And I've been on this earth 38 years, and the only person I've ever had sex with is my wife. So just putting that out there, That's the way I live my life as a Christian. That's what I feel a non-hypocritical Christian should live their lives. And I'm bringing up hypocrisy because I think of all these politicians that are saying, oh, gay marriage will destroy institutional marriage. We must defend traditional marriage. And a lot of these politicians have been married 2 or 3 times. And, a lot of them have left their wives for younger women. I mean, look, I'm against divorce, but, if the person you're married to has broken their vows, if they've, cheated on you, or they've abused you, or they're abusing your children, yes, then I think it's okay for you to break your vow. But otherwise, if you have stood before God and vowed to God that you would stay with that person for better or worse, if you divorce that person, you take on another spouse, you have committed adultery, in my opinion. That is sinful, okay? And I believe that those kind of adulterous sinners are not the people that should be casting stones at homosexuals. And I feel, whether or not you believe homosexual is sinful or not, even if you believe it is sinful, I think all Christians should agree that sinners of that sort should not be casting stones at homosexuals, okay? If you're in adultery, you shouldn't be doing that, okay? It's just not right. And, that just bothers me, okay? Especially those who are really, promiscuous, and they're out there being promiscuous, and they're like, and they're gay bashing. Look at yourself first, okay? Look at yourself first. And, beyond all that, beyond all the Bible verses and all that, part of the reason why I don't have a problem with homosexuality is that I don't believe homosexuality is a choice. I believe it's a God-given thing. I believe a homosexual person is born that way. I don't think God would create someone some way and then punish them for being that way. I have another video called "Is homosexuality a Choice?" I won't spend time talking about it now, but please look at that video if you want to see my feelings about that. But I wanted to close by just saying, look, even if you feel homosexuality is terrible, if you feel in your heart that it's an abomination, let me ask you one thing. Isn't there more important stuff to worry about in this world? Once again, Christ spoke about a lot of things. He spoke about the poor. He spoke about helping the poor, helping the sick, turning the other cheek. He spoke about peace. He spoke about a lot of important things that have bearing on our world today. And I think Christ would want us to worry about those things before we worried about homosexuality, even if we feel homosexuality is sinful. And look, I'm not trying to put down Christians and charity. I'm a Christian. I've given to Christian charities. I believe Christian charities do great work. All sorts of Christians, Catholics, evangelicals. All sorts of Christians give lots of money to charity and do great work, helping the poor, helping the sick, helping the war-torn. Christians do a lot of great work. But what I'm saying is, we shouldn't take any time away from that work to worry about sexual morality. I'm just saying that, there are more important things. Once again, Christ didn't speak about homosexuality. There are more important things than that. And even if you're spending 95% of your time, donating and giving your time and helping the sick and helping the poor and doing all that kind of stuff, you still have that other 5% that you could be using to do that, And if you're spending all your free time helping people out, but spending a little bit of time, railing against homosexuals, that's time that you could have spent helping some poor child, some sick person. And, are you going to could you look into the eyes of some sick child that you didn't help because you were busy, worrying about homosexuals? Could you look into the eyes of that child? Look into the eyes of Christ and tell him, I'm sorry, I couldn't help you. I was too busy railing against homosexuals. You wouldn't do that, okay? Once again, I don't feel homosexuality is sinful. I don't think a loving God would make someone homosexual and send them to hell for that, all right? And nothing anyone says to me is going to change my opinion about that. But even if you don't feel that way, please. Look, I know I've been very preachy and all this, but just look into your heart and just ask yourself. You don't listen to me, but just ask yourself, are there more important things? There are a lot of sins out there, okay? And even if you feel homosexuality is a sin, aren't there more important sins? Aren't there more important things that are hurting this world? I'm serious, all right? I'm sorry if I've been preachy about this, but that's just the way I feel. And I guess that's all I got to say. So, may not change anybody's mind, but I just wanted to put it out there. So for all those who watch, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.